Hello, everybody. This is Rabbi Moshe Rothschild from the Israel Alliance, bringing you summary of the news from Israel for Thursday, week ending November 5th, 2020. We do all the work, so you don't have to. That's right. We watch the news, we read different news sites, and we summarize everything that you need to know from this week. So let's jump right in. This week, it was announced that Malawi, which is an East African country, they confirmed that they will open the first African embassy in Jerusalem. The Malawi foreign minister, I do not know how to pronounce his name, but he said that the Abraham Accords have had a positive effect on Israel's relations with Africa. Those are the accords that we signed with the United Arab Emirates and so on and so forth. This week, sadly, Israeli forces had to return fire after a terrorist opened fire on them from his vehicle in an attempted drive-by shooting in Nablus. Thank God there were no casualties. The terrorist, though, was eliminated. An Israeli company called Cyber Reason, which is a company that deals with cybersecurity, announced that they uncovered North Korean malware used against companies around the world that steals COVID-19 research. Very interesting story. Here's another one a lot of people may not be familiar with. There is a group, a government organization in Israel called COGAT, which of course stands for the Coordination of the Government Activities in the Territories. And Israel, they are responsible for supplying Gaza with humanitarian aid. So they wanted it to be known that Gaza's roughly 2 million residents who suffer under the iron-fisted regime military rule of the Hamas terror group has been continuously supplied with millions of tons of humanitarian aid. This week, COGAT announced that in the last week of October, they had transported 291 trucks from Israel into Gaza with 69,000 tons of goods and equipment, as well as fuel transfer, sending 3.5 million liters, about 875,000 gallons of fuel and diesel into Gaza, along with 130 tons of cooking gas. So those who claim that Gaza is under siege, they have to understand that Israel is providing all humanitarian aid. Israel this week sent respirators to help Myanmar, which is, of course, an Asian country, to fight the corona spike in that country. That's not the right word, not co-prime minister, but they're referring to him as I don't know what the word is, doesn't matter. The power sharing agreement, of course, between Netanyahu and Gantz. Benny Gantz this week at a party meeting of his party had remarked he does not believe that Netanyahu will ever give up power for him. And that closed door meeting was leaked to the public, and Gantz has called for lie detector tests for everyone who was at the meeting. The MKs, the members of the Knesset that were at the meeting, lashed back saying, and I quote, "Someone here has forgotten that we're in politics and not the IDF." Okay, let's move on from that little bickering story there. The Israeli Iron Fist system that is protecting U.S. fighting vehicles from anti-tank attacks, right, is being undergoing testing. The Iron Fist is the cousin of the Iron Dome, was developed here in Israel by the same company. It's not quite the Starship Enterprise, but it's an incredibly advanced system that detects, tracks, and neutralizes incoming anti-tank missiles to protect the vehicle and its crew. So the Iron Fist sensors are equipped on American tanks, and it's been very successfully tested in the United States. New Israeli robots design are inspired by, guess what? cockroaches and lizards. The Amphistar is what it's called, uses a sprawling mechanism inspired by cockroaches and it's designed to run on water at high speeds like the lizard. So it's a new amphibious robot used in the military. This week, once again, an Israeli Black Hawk helicopter carrying our chief of staff, Aviv Kochavi, was forced to land in an emergency landing. That was the second time that happened to him this year. Personally, I would not get in a helicopter again if I were him, but that's just what I'm thinking. Now, here comes an interesting story. The Israeli Air Force commemorated Sean Connery. That's right, James Bond 007, who was a great friend of the Jewish state. They posted a 1967 photograph that Sean Connery took alongside the Israeli Air Force commander at the time, Mati Hod. And the photograph had in the background an airplane, an Iraqi plane that Israel had captured with the number on it, 007. The U.S. issued this week, in a historic moment, the first passport with Israel listed as a birthplace of someone who was born in Jerusalem. Until now, if you were a U.S. citizen like I am, also an Israeli citizen, born in Israel like my son is, born in Jerusalem, your passport reads Jerusalem. Now it will say Jerusalem, comma, Israel. Wonderful gift to the state of Israel by the Trump administration. This week, as we've been reporting, finally, Israel launched their human trials of our homegrown vaccine, coronavirus vaccine. In our final story, and I love this story, it's an amazing story. Israeli bobsledders are blazing a new trail for blue and white Israeli athletes. It's the most unlikely sport in Israel, but nothing will stand in the way of a 2022 Winter Olympics bid. American Israeli Adam AJ Edelman is representing Israel in the bobsled competition. And get this, the members of his team are all Druze, who are part of the Druze community in Israel, which is a minority community. And there are 3 members of Arab Druze on his team. And it's a fascinating team. And here is what he said this week: I'm a firm believer in the meritocracy of sports, and I found them by searching for high quality rugby players. They're absolutely incredible, terrific guys, said the Orthodox Jewish athlete. Amazing. Who would think Israelis will be running a bobsled? Anyhow, folks, that is the news from this week. And I wanted to say that we in Israel here are praying on behalf of the United States. We know it's undergoing a very difficult election with a lot of uncertainty. So we are praying for you, and we hope that the outcome will be good.